Okay, let's unpack this. Um, Imagine for a second that everything you thought you knew about ancient history, religion, science, maybe even, the sun, is completely, startlingly wrong.
Right. What if these huge secrets about cosmic travel, hidden knowledge, our place in the universe,
Uh-huh.
what if they've been right there for thousands of years, just waiting?
Exactly. Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're really getting into some intense source material. It's an audio excerpt, and it's packed with these profound, sometimes unsettling claims about ancient knowledge, symbols, structures, celestial stuff.
Yeah, and our mission really is to pull out the biggest insights, the most surprising facts that the source is throwing at us to help you navigate this really dense, unconventional information about, well, everything, our past, present, future.
What's so fascinating here, I think, is how this source material doesn't just offer a slightly different take. It fundamentally challenges, conventional wisdom.
Totally. It argues we've basically missed the real meaning behind some of the world's most famous artifacts, symbols.
Right. And it kicks off with maybe the most iconic ancient figure, the Sphinx in Egypt.
Uh-huh. According to this source, the Sphinx isn't just some old statue.
Well,
It's claimed to be the actual source of all knowledge.
all knowledge.
Yeah, and literally the face of God, and potentially much older than we think, maybe 10,000, even 12,000 years old.
Wow. Okay. And the famous riddle.
The source frames that not just as a philosophical question, but a real test. It claims uncovering the knowledge inside the Sphinx brings immense rewards: glory, power, eternal life, even the right to rule.
And the price for all this.
Astonishingly simple, or so the source claims, just restoration.
Restoration, like physically fixing it.
Yes, exactly. The source states that restoring the Sphinx is necessary because this monument, it says, will lead the next world, and it gets to choose who's worthy of its knowledge.
Okay.
But the physical act, the restoration itself, that's just step one, it argues, to understanding the deeper kind of cosmic message.
And there is a cosmic connection here.
Oh, yeah, a strong one. The source claims the Sphinx's face, its location, their deliberate clues, pointing back to the constellation Leo.
Leo, the lion.
Right, but not just any time, specifically around 10,000 BC.
Okay.
And here's where it gets interesting. The source interprets Leo in this ancient context not just as a lion, but also as a serpent.
The serpent.
Yeah. And this serpent, the source claims, is linked directly to a specific pyramid there on the Giza Plateau. The serpent symbol itself. It's equated with flight,
Flight.
suggesting the wisdom the Sphinx holds requires more than just, thinking about it.
Yeah.
It needs actual flight and, crucially, star travel. The face and location of the Sphinx are supposedly the keys.
Okay, wow. Flight, star travel, tied to a serpent and a pyramid. That is definitely not the standard interpretation.
Not at all. And this whole reinterpreting symbols thing, it extends to Egyptian royalty, too.
Like ISIS.
Exactly. The source looks at queens like Isis, often shown with serpents and suns, and it focuses on the number of these symbols. It claims the number represents dominion.
Dominion over what?
7 serpents or suns, that means dominion over the 7 continents. But if you see a queen with 8, 9, or 10 of these symbols,
Yeah.
that signifies dominion over every planet in our solar system.
10 planets. Okay. We'll circle back to that number. But the source actually points to a specific queen.
It does. A queen depicted with 10 serpent suns is identified as the Queen of the Stargate.
Queen of the Stargate. Okay.
Mhm.
That introduces a pretty powerful idea right there. That these symbols aren't just decoration. They're maybe indicators of cosmic ability.
Ah.
Or even literal maps.
That's the implication. And this reinterpretation, it doesn't stop in Egypt. It tackles symbols we see everywhere, across cultures, religions, like the cross.
The cross symbol. Okay, what's the claim there?
A bold one, that the ancient cross symbol found globally existed nearly 3,000 years before Jesus.
3,000 years.
And its original meaning, the source insists, was literally God and the existence of God. Not crucifixion, not suffering.
Wow. That really forces you to ask, have we totally misunderstood some of our oldest symbols?
Exactly. And the source connects this to the origin of the halo. We picture it as a circle of light around a holy figure's head.
Yeah.
But the source claims early depictions around 300 AD show something different. They show that crossed circle symbol, the God and existence of God, one placed behind the figure.
Behind them.
Yeah, signifying God's presence behind them, not a glow around their head.
So the cross means God's existence, the original halo, was a symbol behind the person. That completely changes how you look at that religious art.
It really does. And according to the source, this ancient cross symbol, it was brought here by heavenly angels,
which the source identifies as.
the Anunnaki, from the Sumerian text.
Ah, the Anunnaki. Okay. So the source calls them heavenly angels who came here, what, 5,000 years ago?
About that, yeah. And with a specific purpose, to teach mankind.
To teach us.
Yes, and this is critical. The source argues the artwork showing the Anunnaki wasn't just art, it was made for learning. Everything they're holding or wearing, stars, wings, watches, crosses, that's all interpreted as clues, lessons, maybe even actual tech left for us to figure out.
They were teachers, and how they looked was part of the lesson.
Precisely. Like those crosses they wore, the source claims they weren't just jewelry, they were tools.
Huh.
Functional.
Tools. How so?
Right. It points out that the crosses shown with the Anunnaki have rounded edges, and the source interprets this very specifically. It says that's a clear sign they were designed to fit into something circular.
Okay. A circular object. Like what?
Like the Egyptian sun disk. You know, the image, the sun with a hole in the middle.
Ah, okay.
So here's where the source makes this fascinating leap. It claims putting the cross tool into the hole of the sun disk and turning it. That created a sophisticated navigation device.
A navigation device?
Yeah. By using this tool and the disk, people could apparently figure out their location, direction, destination. They could make maps and travel routes.
Travel routes.
Yeah.
Just on Earth. Or...
That's the claim, not just between lands, but between stars and planets, too.
Wow. Is there any evidence cited for that?
The source points to ancient Sumerian navigation records. Apparently, they feature a cross at the center, which the source uses as evidence for this kind of circular mapping system, unlike our, flat maps today.
Okay. And this leads to, well, one of the most provocative claims of the whole thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That for the last 3,000 years, humanity has basically been worshipping a GPS navigation device through venerating the cross symbol.
Worshipping a GPS, that certainly forces you to rethink that symbol entirely.
Yeah, and the source uses this specific claim to suggest our current understanding is, fundamentally immature. It calls for humanity to kind of mature its perspective.
Okay. And speaking of navigation, ancient understanding, the source talks about solstices.
Yes, it emphasizes their critical importance, both winter and summer. It claims these key dates were specifically taught to humans by alien forefathers.
Alien forefathers, okay. And why were solstices so important?
The source states that time itself is our most critical commodity. Lost life, basically. Yet it notes, time has no power in Egypt. The solstices, yeah, they were feast days, but they held a deeper cosmic meaning.
Like what?
The summer solstice, specifically, meant that something called the Stargate was open, giving the Anunnaki a chance to go home.
So, ancient structures, sky observations, they're not just calendars, they're tied to actual cosmic events, travel windows, according to this source.
That's the core argument, yeah. And the source makes a distinction here. It says, unlike monuments in other places, built for, self-glorification.
Right.
It claims Egyptian works, like the Sphinx, the pyramids.
Yeah.
They were built to save us.
Save us.
Yeah, described as being laden with power and holy knowledge, deliberately made and left behind for a time when mankind finally matures enough to get it.
And these huge structures, the source says they're not just random shapes, they actually look like the sun.
Exactly. The source draws these really compelling visual parallels between key ancient structures, different cultures too. Sphinx in Egypt, Aztec Pyramid of the Sun, Mayan Temple of the Sun, that Ethiopian obelisk.
Okay.
It points out matching features. The lines on the Sphinx, certain holes, square openings, dimensions, claiming they all represent aspects of the sun's form. The Sphinx, specifically, is called the face of the sun. The Aztec and Mayan pyramids, architectural versions of the sun.
Tell me more about the Ethiopian obelisk. The source called it a 2,000-year enigma.
That's the Axum obelisk. The source claims its mystery is solved if you look at it through that Egyptian lens, understanding structures. It identifies the obelisk as representing the sun, notes it has 10 layers, like the Mayan pyramid.
Okay.
But uniquely among all these sun structures, it has a distinct door at the bottom.
A door in a giant stone obelisk that represents the sun.
Which leads us right to the source's central, most profound claim, our sun. The star we see every single day. It has a door that leads into space.
Wait, what?
And the sun itself is a stargate. An open door, a gateway for travel.
The sun is a stargate.
Yeah.
That flips everything. Everything we think we know about the most familiar thing in our sky. Just, wow.
It absolutely does. And the source ties this directly, this astonishing claim, to UFOs.
Right. It said the USA is a UFO hotspot. But the sun is the main hotspot.
A primary one in our solar system, yeah. And the reason for all this activity around the sun, according to the source, precisely because it's a Stargate.
Right.
The fact that there are many different types of UFOs, different shapes, sizes, propulsion systems that's interpreted as evidence. Different species from different galaxies are using this gate.
And they're just passing through.
The source claims they're deliberately making themselves known, showing us how to enter the cosmos. As for the USA being a hotspot, it links to this unusual claim that the nation was here before, implying some past connection, and that these visitors want an American to be the first to go on the next journey through the Stargate.
So UFOs aren't random, they're cosmic traffic, maybe even guides, according to the source.
That's the perspective, yeah. And while the Sun is Stargate thing is huge, the source says there's something even more important, something it calls the spider.
You mean like the Nazca lines
Yeah.
in Peru?
Exactly that. The source declares the spider is the most important symbol of all, claims it's proof, and a warning. Powerful enough to silence skeptics, it says. It points to that famous Nazca spider, its 8 legs,
Okay.
interpreting them as representing our solar system, 8 planets, and see that leg stretching away from the body.
Yeah.
That signifies great distance, direction, a travel route.
Huh. And the source connects this to Egypt, too, some artifact.
Yes, it describes a recently found artifact from Egypt, a spider, with a hole in the center, 8 legs. The source interprets this very specifically, our solar system, with dominion over its planets.
Okay, 8 legs, 8 planets. But what about the 10 planets from before, with Queen Isis?
Right, remember that. The source claims the outer ring of this Egyptian spider artifact shows 2 smaller planets, Pluto and Ceres.
Pluto and Ceres, on the spider.
Meaning the spider symbol, representing the sun solar system, signifies dominion over 10 planets. And then the source makes this incredible claim that this is confirmed because Egyptian pyramids have been found on both Pluto and Ceres.
Egyptian pyramids on Pluto and Ceres. That's an extraordinary claim from the source material.
It is, definitely out there. And these symbols, these structures, the source argues, they prove the ancients understood way more about our solar system and beyond than we give them credit for.
Which leads the source to reinterpret something else. Ancient cave paintings, like 50,000 years old.
Yeah. Usually we see them as primitive art, right? Maybe early depictions of visitors, simple stuff.
So the source disagrees.
Strongly. It claims these paintings are not primitive at all. They're highly sophisticated, covert transmissions, meant specifically for future generations for us.
Transmissions.
Yeah. The source argues the people who made them were just as smart, maybe even smarter than we are today. It really challenges what the source calls our arrogance in dismissing them as, dumb savages. These figures aren't primitive aliens.
Okay, so if those big-eyed figures in the cave paintings aren't primitive aliens, what does the source say they are?
This is where the source gets into some really unconventional physics and cosmology. It claims those large, dark eyes, they aren't eyes, they're symbols for light, and they actually represent black holes.
Black holes. The eyes are black holes.
That's the claim. Spider cave paintings, in this view, represent solar systems with sun's stargates at the center. The source even offers a diagram interpretation, where what we see as an alien drawing, it's actually showing what a black hole looks like in space.
Oh.
The eyes, according to this interpretation, are the black hole's center. The nose, that's a diagram showing how a black hole is created. And get this, at the end of the snout is the sun.
The sun. Shown at the end of a black hole diagram. That's a very different kind of connection.
It is. And the source builds on this, develops this complex model for how the sun works. It claims the sun isn't solid, burning gas. It's hollow. Yeah. And those coronal holes, the dark patches we see, they aren't just phenomena. The source claims they're literal openings, cool corridors for entry. The sun is described as being like halfway into a hole in space, warping the space around it. That's the UFO effect, the event horizon.
And this hole in space?
Yeah.
That's the wormhole.
Precisely. The source brings in Einstein's Rosenbridge concept, theoretical physics. It claims a sun collapsing doesn't just destroy everything. Instead, it creates a black hole, but in what the source calls a 2D universe, like a flat plane.
Okay.
This black hole, the source says, then feeds energy through a wormhole into our 3D universe.
Huh.
And that energy comes out as the burning sun we see.
So, wait. What we call the sun is actually energy exiting a black hole through a wormhole, according to the source.
That's the mind-bending idea, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And a hole in 3D space, the source claims, would look like a dark sphere, a dark planet. So the alien drawing. That's depicting this 3D black hole shape with the creation diagram attached.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot to process. The sun is the exit point of a wormhole from a black hole.
It absolutely is. And this brings us back to the cave paintings. Their purpose. The source argues they're not just scribbles, they're sophisticated star maps, navigation guides.
Star maps.
The animals drawn with dots, they represent specific constellations, meant to be used with that crossed circle tool we talked about earlier.
So the ancients, the source claims they knew how to navigate space. They knew you could get lost. And they left maps for us.
That's the core claim. The source sees this as undeniable proof that they have done it before. Advanced space travel happened long ago, and therefore we are not alone.
In this model, the sun as a wormhole exit, it makes interstellar travel seem possible, suddenly.
Yes, that's the conclusion. A sun falling through space creates a hole, which creates a bridge, the wormhole, making interstellar travel possible. Journeys that seemed impossible, millions of years, like reaching Andromeda, 2.5 million light years away, could potentially take mere months. Via this wormhole, the source even uses language like, you could literally walk into the kingdom of heaven, or drink wine at the table of God.
An impossible journey made possible. But the source stresses it's not just about the physics, right? There's something else needed.
Absolutely. Beyond the mechanics, the source claims successfully making this journey requires courage, faith, strength, and maybe, most importantly, enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
Yeah. And it describes enlightenment as something almost totally missing in modern humans, an alien concept to us. It's the ability to see everything as connected, as one, to embody abundance. To really get this knowledge, to go on this journey, you have to learn to think like an alien.
Think like an alien.
Yeah.
And this need for enlightenment, it leads the source to a pretty harsh critique of us right now.
It's a very stark contrast. The source calls us arrogant for looking down on ancient people, thinking they were inferior. It argues we were actually the worst humans who've ever lived here, setting the damage, the pollution. The ancients, it claims, were better. They had this incredible wisdom, and they left behind an Earth that was still livable. At our current rate, the source warns, there won't be a healthy Earth to come back to. Stargate or no Stargate.
That's a really sobering message woven into all these incredible cosmic claims, and the USA's role comes up again.
Yeah, the source circles back to that high UFO activity over the USA. Claims it's because the nation was here before, implying some deep ancient connection for this land. And because of this, the visitors are specifically looking for an American to be the first person on the next journey through the Stargate.
Okay, so we've really taken a deep dive into this source. Claims about ancient symbols, sphinx, cross, spider, holding cosmic keys, structures mirroring the sun, pointing the way, the absolutely staggering idea that the sun itself is a stargate.
Yeah.
Maybe even energy from a black hole via a wormhole.
Yeah, and reinterpreting cave paintings as star maps from intelligent ancestors who traveled space before us. And this vision of interstellar travel being possible, but linked to ancient wisdom and enlightenment.
All presented alongside a pretty sharp critique of where humanity is now.
Definitely. This deep dive was really about exploring the compelling, sometimes just unbelievable, claims in the specific source material, trying to understand its unique story about our past and our potential future.
It really leaves us with a lot to think about.
Yeah.
You know, given these claims' hidden ancient wisdom, our current environmental path, the potential for cosmic travel through the sun, the source seems to be asking a huge question. In our current state, which the source calls arrogant, are we actually enlightened enough to understand this, to use this knowledge responsibly?
Yeah.
Or does our current approach, as the source suggests, make us kind of unworthy? What does this whole perspective make you think about humanity's story, past, present, and future?